These are people that lost their mother, that lost their sister. Thomas Moore, a state trooper. He stole $125,000 from a state trooper.
Alex was a thief. Alex was manipulative.
He does not deserve bond. He forfeited that right. He stole. He's a liar and a cheat.
That's Eric Bland, the powerhouse attorney who helped put Alec Murdaugh behind bars. You know the story. The once respected lawyer who murdered his wife Maggie and son Paul and stole millions from his clients, friends, even his housekeeper's family.
Guilty verdict. Signed by the forelady, 3/2/23.
I'm Anne Emerson, an investigative reporter and host of Criminally Obsessed. Now, I've covered the Murdaugh murders for years, and Eric and I have talked on and off the record. Today, he is on fire. He's breaking down the Hulu series Death in the Family and taking aim at the Murdaugh defense team like I've never heard.
Dick is running around saying, my client's innocent. Dick is actually taking that next step. My client is innocent.
Before we get into it, hit subscribe, tap like, and be sure to share this video because you're gonna get information on the Murdaugh murders here that you will not get anywhere else. I remember one of the first times I talked to you, we were calling you because we were hearing that there was gonna be a court hearing about this family, the Satterfields.
Yeah, it was the fall of 2021. And, the news was, everybody was focusing obviously on Maggie and Paul's murder in June of 2021, and then the Labor Day roadside shooting, and then the Labor Day weekend revelation of the law firm, Parker Law Firm, that, they had discovered the misappropriation and theft by Alex. And so, that's really was the genesis for us getting involved on behalf of the Satterfields. Mandy Matney had written an article saying that there was a $500,000 settlement revealed in a court petition in connection with Gloria's death. And so the family obviously didn't get any money from that, and they started asking questions. And Mark Tinsley fortunately called me on the phone and asked whether I would be interested in talking to the family, and that's what got the ball rolling. And we knew from the start, Anne, that the financial crimes was going to be really the hub that would ultimately bring down Alex Murdaugh. And at the time, their murder charges were not brought. And so we were able to, through pressure, get the FBI and SLED involved to look at this. And then, of course, in October, criminal charges were brought against them for taking, at that time, we found out $4.3 million from Gloria's Satterfield's estate. And then we had the bond hearing, and that's when it all really started snowballing, when Alex was denied bond by Judge Newman.
We do believe that Mr. Murdaugh is a danger. He's already, by the previous charges that he had, he's been a danger to himself. And a man who's a danger to himself is a danger to others. He had been carrying a $100,000 credit card balance for months. That gets paid off. He writes 300 and some odd grand to his father. He writes a check for 610 grand to himself. He writes a check for 125 grand to himself. Not a dime goes to this family.
Eric, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember going to a Starbucks right after that hearing and having to try and remember. I had been transcribing like crazy. Do you remember what you said at that bond hearing?
I did. I said that if you give him, anything less than a full cup of justice, it will not be justice. And that he, brought the bar in our state in disrepute, and he, certainly brought disrepute to the state of South Carolina. And if Mr. Harpootlian's correct that he really does have this opioid addiction, then he shouldn't be on the street. For us, the financial crime cases were so vitally important because we always felt that if we can get him convicted of that, then no matter what would happen with the murder cases and those convictions, he was still going to be spending the rest of his life in prison. And, now that he's got 23 years in a state prison. And if he can survive till he's 79 years old in a state prison, then he's let out and he has to go do 40 in the federal prison. And that's irrespective of the murder convictions for Maggie and Paul and the Labor Day shooting charge that's still kind of out there.
It sure is. I mean, you know, that day was a turning point for sure. And I remember seeing the Satterfields come into the courtroom in that bond hearing, and you're calling this man who they always thought hung the moon, a liar, a thief, and you went after him for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me about that relationship with the Satterfields.
It's a special relationship. You know, I've always made the public statements and private statements that it just gnaws on me when I hear Gloria referred to as just a housekeeper. She was so much more. And in this new Hulu series, you see how much more that she was. She was a vital part of that family, in helping to raise Paul and having the confidence of Paul. And then also the way that Maggie confided in her with her reservations that she had about Alex. And, you know, the young boys, men, I call them boys because I'm so old.
Tony,
but
and we're
the-
talking about Tony and Brian, her two sons.
her two
You
sons.
took the brunt of all of this with Alec Murdaugh.
Right. And, you know, they were misled. They were lied to. They lost their mother's mobile home in a foreclosure after Alex got notice of the foreclosure and didn't, you know, couldn't even come up with $17,000 to stop the foreclosure after he and Corey stole $4.3 million from these men, excuse me. They're just salt of the earth people. They're very religious people. And like this morning, I was on a court TV and I was asked, you know, what did the Satterfields think about the Hulu series? They didn't watch it. These are Christian people that they have forgiven, believe it or not, Alex. They won't forget, but their Christian beliefs require them to forgive him. I don't forgive. I'm an Old Testament guy, and they have forgiven him for what they have done, and you know, they feel liberated in that way, to be able to give that forgiveness. I know that they were appreciative when I talked about the comments of how Gloria was portrayed, you know, in the series. The timeline's off. You know, she died in February of 2018. The boating accident didn't happen until February 2019. So she was already dead.
I
But the
know.
way
And did that bother you when you saw that the timeline had shifted, or were you okay with that?
Not really. It didn't bother me because they wanted to show her in the light that she was, and they wouldn't have been able to do that if they stuck to the timeline. And like I said this morning, you know, Dick Harpootlian has made a lot of comments about the series.
It's horrible. They're reckless. They're just making stuff up. And it was so factually wrong. It's a soap opera on steroids based on, when I say loosely, it's not even loosely based on fact. They just make stuff up. It's trying to monetize misery.
That it's fiction and it's fake and everything like that. And I said that this wasn't a Ken Burns documentary on PBS on the Revolutionary War. It was a series about shocking, tragic crimes, as well as family dynamics. And so I don't think anything material was wrong. Sure, they may have changed some timelines and, you know, attributed conversations that may not have happened. But the major material facts that Alex was an alcoholic. According to Dick, Alex was an opioid abuser. Alex was a thief. Alex was manipulative. Alex used and levered his relationships and his family's reputation and his father's connections. He bullied his wife. He bullied his colleagues in his firm. He bullied Russ Lafitte. All that is true, Anne. And those are the important facts. And so, sure, you can look at any potential docuseries and say, oh, that's not true. You know, that didn't happen. But is it really material? And so, like I said, you know, I think Dick is still struggling with the fact that he's been painted with that Alex brush. And sometimes lawyers need to understand that if you represent monsters or you represent people that have a really bad fact situation, some of that stink. will come on to you as a lawyer. We like to think as lawyers, oh, we can detach ourselves from our clients. We're just doing a job that the client's entitled to representation. But sometimes when you represent people like Alex Murdaugh that are monsters, it can hurt you. It can hurt your reputation. And I think, like Dick is pointing out that the lawyer who played him is shorter and fat. Look, Dick's 5 feet 8 inches. He couldn't make an adult basketball team if he tried. No, he's not fat like the guy, but that wasn't the issue. They weren't trying to humiliate Dick with that. They were just showing that, the guy was a serious lawyer and said, I got this all taken care of. The same way that Dick tells everybody, I got it all taken care of. Don't worry about it. So they would have been better off not saying anything. And quite frankly, I have a question of how is Alex watching Hulu in a maximum security prison? How does that take place?
Well, Eric, we went to Christy Shane to ask if that was possible. And Christy Shane runs SEDC Public Information. And she said that he absolutely doesn't have access to that, like you said. And from what we understood was that he was getting secondhand information
Sure.
from his lawyers.
And I think he's upset with what he's hearing about the movie, because it's not true, and it denigrates Maggie and Paul.
From what we understand, that is how he was getting that information, was secondhand.
Right. And so he's making a comment based on somebody telling him, what this show and series is about. The series isn't about, I got you. I can show that this didn't happen. The series is to show the downfall of a family and the role that Alex played in it. And he was, there's some very poignant moments in that series, when he pushed Maggie back in the chair and she looked up and saw, there's fear in her eye of, oh my God, this guy could hurt me. He's that unglued. And when she wanted to leave to go to Edisto, she was anxious and telling Paul by the kennels, let's go before Alex comes. And then the revelation from Paul when he was talking to Buster, hey, I'm getting everything I deserve. I did this to Mallory Beach. When he said that I have this coming to me. What's interesting about the series is probably interesting about life. Exactly how I thought about Paul was, this was a smart ass kid. And when the series started, he was unruly. But then as the series goes on, you feel sorry for him because it was bad parenting. That was a majority of his problems. He was an overindulged kid. They permitted him a long leash about alcohol and some of his other misdeeds he didn't have to pay the penalty for. So I don't blame Paul for all of it. I blame Paul for some of it, obviously. But, this Timmy character, they obviously encouraged it. That should have been curbed. That when he drinks, this Timmy, he needed help. So I think that's what this series showed. And it showed that Buster, was like almost collateral. He was an afterthought. He wasn't, they never really cared. It looked like about Buster. It was the center of attention was Paul. The center of attention was Alex. And they were such tornadoes that Buster, flunked out of law school or got kicked out of law school. And no one even knew about it. The grandfather found out about it because through his pipeline of connections.
Contacts, yeah.
But
I was going to say, how do you feel about Buster?
I feel he's a victim. I feel sorry for him. I feel like there's nothing that he did. Yes, he gave his ID for Paul to use to buy the alcohol at Parker's convenience store. But my older brother would have done that for me, and I'm just telling you. I have an older brother that's 3 years older than me and another one that's 3 years older than him. And they would have done that for me at that age. They would have said, you could use it. So that's done all the time. People let people use it. And Buster wouldn't have given it to him if he knew that Paul was going to get ossified drunk and then ultimately be responsible for Mallory Beach's death. So he didn't seem like he was a kid that was drinking, that got in trouble. He went to college and, he had a girlfriend. So in Brooklyn, you just feel sorry for him. The guy lost his mother, his father, and his brother. And now he's going through life without him.
You just wonder even how he copes on a daily basis with all that. I did talk to Dick about that relationship, and he said that Buster's still staying in touch with his dad.
I'm sure. You know,
It's all that's left on that, you know?
right.
I mean,
You know,
the uncles, of course, have been close too.
does he really believe that his dad is innocent? Possibly, but not really. I think if you really would ask, I think there's questions that he doesn't want answers to, because otherwise he'll lose all contact with his father. And, um, you know, it's just a real sad situation. And this story showed how sad it is. And I think it's done very well. I think Jason Clark is amazing.
Did that freak you
Patricia,
out when you saw him as
yeah.
Alec Murdaugh?
Oh, you cheating bastard.
It's only cheating if you get caught.
The times are coming when the cinema.
What happened?
There's been an accident.
Jesus. I mean, it's spot on. His
That
mannerisms.
that freaked me out. Like, I didn't realize that anyone could get that close to Alec Murdaugh, but man, Jason Clark nailed it.
You know, if you're on the outside looking in, you say, God, I wish I had that lifestyle. You know, airplanes, $65,000 bills at Atlantis in the Bahamas, and, you know, what a life. But then when you see it kind of unfold on screen, no thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I wanted to ask you something in that series about specifically about Gloria Satterfield that was gnawing at me a little bit too. And I know that this is a dramatization. I'm not trying to put, you know, it like you said, chronologically, there's lots of things in the Hulu series that have had to be adjusted. But there was one thing that stuck out to me, and that's when Gloria dies. And that is, you know, that she was actually carrying their luggage. And there was something about
That was bad. That I didn't
that was
like
hard for me.
because that was demeaning.
Yeah.
It made them make her lower than she was. She wasn't like that, you know, to go carry the luggage and, you know, up those stairs. And even the stairs in the movie on Mizelle aren't as steep and long as the real stairs on Mizelle. And I've stood on top of those stairs. They're long and they're pointed. The brick is pointed. So it's really scary. I didn't like that. That was the one thing I didn't like. You know, and of course people have asked, well, Eric, how come you're not in the series? And I'm okay
I
with that.
wondered. I was looking for you.
I'm okay. It's not about me. This is a story about the victims and the people who suffered loss of money. Quite frankly, Ann, I've had enough notoriety to last me 3 lifetimes.
I'm sure you are, because you're a very humble
I
human
don't
being.
know.
Yes, you are. In a lot of ways, you are. I've known you for a long time, and we sat through that 6-week trial. So absolutely. But you know, yes, so that bothered me. I'm glad that bothered you too, because that was bothering me about that. But as far as, I don't think we can underestimate like how much of a role the Murdaughs and this played in the Satterfield's life up until the time she died, and then when the money was stolen from them. Their lives were just woven together for so long. It's that betrayal that they can forgive that is huge.
Well, I think that Tony and Brian put more emphasis, obviously, on the relationship with the Murdaughs than really existed. You saw the way Alex discarded Tony at the fair when Randolph was being the grand marshal, and Tony came up to him and tried to mention about the case, and Alex just brushed him off. I mean, that's the way he did treat them. I did get the confirmation of that. But they,
I was going to ask you, did you do any background with the series to help?
I did.
Like,
I last spring I had a long interview, but not no. I wasn't really consulted. They wanted some history, which I gave, but no, I wasn't involved along the way. I had no idea whether I was going to be in it or not.
yeah.
I suspected I wasn't because I really hadn't heard anything. You know, I really wanted John Berenger to play me. I thought he would have been a great, or Andy Garcia. That would have been a good Eric Bland. But no, in all sincerity, I didn't participate in this.
Have you watched the whole thing?
Oh yeah.
You've watched the whole thing already? Okay. I was wondering if you had done
Well,
that.
I mean, I got to watch tonight's episode, which is what, number 6 or something like that. But yeah, I did. My wife and I are watching it, and I'm not sitting there saying that's not true and that's true, that's not true. I'm more interested in what is the message, what is the theme? And it's all, I think the bigger picture is accurate. You can quibble with different things that happened and timelines and gotcha moments like that. But if you're doing that, then you're really not getting the essence of the series.
No. Well, I think okay, so I'm gonna give you one thing that I did. I've talked to Creighton as well. Creighton said Creighton Waters was he gave me a great quote about this. He said,
When I look back on all of this, if I had taken this and decided to fly to LA and pitch this as a movie or a series or something like that, probably the producers have been like, you need to dial it back a little bit. We're losing our suspension of disbelief at this point.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, Creighton was playing chess while I think Dick and Jim were on the fly playing checkers in a way. And Creighton had a long game plan, and he followed through on that long game plan. We as citizens of this state owe a big debt to him and Alan Wilson for how they demanded justice for Alex on the state level. Usually when it happens on the federal level, the state just defers and gets out. But he was very upset that I know during the Russell Laffitte sentence a couple of weeks ago that his basically hands were tied by what happened on the federal level. He wanted Russell to get much more time than the 40 months that he was given plus time served.
the character that we see, as far as the Russell Laffitte storyline, I do wonder how
Bruce.
they were
They
like
called him
grappling with
Bruce.
that.
They called him Bruce in the series, which was
Why?
strange. Well, I think it's because at the time that they filmed it, and there were open criminal cases that were
Okay.
not resolved, and so they didn't want to prejudice the ongoing proceedings. That's the only thing I can think of
It
why
just
they would call him
surprised
Bruce.
me because I was like, why not? Yeah, but you're right. That's what I was sort of thinking too. I kind of wanted to get your legal expertise on that one. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was Dick Harpootlian. When we talked to him about this whole series, you heard, I mean, he was very vocal about it in a statement that he just released as well on Alec Murdaugh's behalf. But he said,
I think Alec Murdaugh is a horrible person for stealing money from people that he represented, who needed the money. I think that, and he admits that. But I don't believe he killed his wife and son.
Well, I think Dick is delusional. I think if you objectively look at the facts, it is impossible to conclude otherwise. Just like OJ has never found the people who killed Nicole and Ron Goldman. Supposedly there were people out there. What executioners come onto the property to kill somebody late at night and don't bring their own guns and are going to steal the guns from the victim's house? I mean, that was just the fact that they're positing that two executioners came onto this property without weapons, that Alex is not going to tell his son that he was at the kennels for 2 years and told the lie to the world and his son, Buster, that I was sleeping on the couch, that he's going to have a clean white shirt. If you come up on your wife and your son and they're laying there dead, you're going to be hugging them, screaming. You're going to have dirt and blood all over you. Are you going to wait 42 minutes to call Buster on the phone?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
And at the same time, you also looked at this jury and tried to tell them that you had been cooperative in this investigation.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect of this investigation.
I mean, Dick said we were going to prove who killed Maggie and Paul. He can't do that. I mean, Dick reminds me of like Henry Fonda in On Golden Pond, just an old lion, just trying to see if he could still roar. He just represented the wrong guy. He represented a guilty guy. And I think he's concerned that some of the stink is coming off on him. Well, as lawyers, like I said earlier, we like to think that we can represent our clients and detach ourselves. No, when you associate with a guy like Alex Murdaugh and you vouch for him and you say it's my honor to represent Alex Murdaugh like he did at the start of the trial, then you're going to have to take the good with the bad. And, if you're going to say Alex didn't do it, well, then who did? Because,
that's
if
what
two
I want to
people,
know.
if two
You
people
think there could be two shooters?
No, if two people committed a murder somebody would talk. Somebody, believe me, would have been coming forward to SLED and the FBI since June of 2021 with information. Information like that can't be contained. And no one's come forward with it. There's no theory on who it could be.
Why do people still think that he didn't do it?
Because that's what they want to believe. They want to believe that that there really is this, there were a group of people that wanted Alex and his family to suffer. If that's the case, if Alex really thought that there's killers out there on the loose that want to take out our family, why would he have told Buster, come back to Mizell at 10:42 at night when he made that phone call? Wouldn't you say, Ann, hey, don't come home. Your mother and brother were just killed and somebody may be trying to kill you or me. Wherever you are, go to a police station. He knew what he did. And he tried to he thought that he could use his personality and the larger than life that he was to convince everybody that he was innocent. And he failed miserably because he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
And a psychopath.
Among other, I'm sure he's still getting profiles and psychological, definitions thrown at him in prison too, I wonder. But I wanted to know, like, I don't know if I ever asked you, like, did you know the Murdaughs before this?
No.
all
In
went
fact, I
down?
was speaking yesterday to a Rotary group in Orangeburg, and I said, before the boating accident, I knew of the law firm. I didn't know anything about the Murdaughs. We don't see them. And in our courts in Richland County or Charleston or Greenville, they stay in Hampton County. At least they did then, because of how successful they are in Hampton County in front of those juries. You just didn't see them. They toiled in anonymity in a way, and they did it in the dark.
Well, they did it. I mean, they had a fiefdom right there, right? So their whole kingdom of power and wealth, and why would you go outside of your kingdom?
It was centralized. They had relationships with jurors
Right.
simply because they all lived in the community and went to the same churches, shopped at the same Piggly Wiggly, played church baseball together. They were very good, the law firm, in acknowledging police with pig pickings and different affairs. They would send people graduation notes and graduation gifts and provide flowers during funerals. Nothing wrong with what they did. They ingratiated themselves to the community, and it paid off handsomely for them. Nothing illegal.
That also raises another question that I just wanted to get your viewpoint. Where do you think the Becky Hill? I mean, would you have ever thought the clerk of court who we saw every day at that trial, Becky Hill, would get first embroiled in this plagiarizing scandal, and then lo and behold, she's at the center of the appeal for Alec Murdaugh for, they accused her of tampering with the jury, the defense team, and now they're trying to get an appeal based on this. I mean, first of all, could you wrap your head around with Becky Hill? Like that
Yeah,
is
I can.
still blows my mind.
I can, because everyone who was a major part of that trial or of the Alex Murdaugh saga, it all went to our heads. It went to my head, Ann. I was on TV every night, sometimes 2 and 3 times a night. Every week, twice a week, there were cameras and directors coming to my house and setting up cameras. And it goes
They
to your
couldn't get
head.
enough. They couldn't get enough.
I know, but it
And
goes to
they
your head.
meaning the world. Like that's all they wanted to talk about.
It goes to your head a little bit. And so it went to Becky Hill's head a little bit. I remember during the trial, she would regale us with stories about the courthouse and lawyers whose pictures were on the wall. And she felt important because, truthfully, the clerk of court, it's a daily Monday job. You're taking documents, you're stamping them, you're trying to get, court reporters to show up. It's not really a glamorous job. And she became glamorous as the trial went on. She has a bubbly personality, and it played well to the people that were there, and she was comfortable talking to them. So do I think it's ultimately going to be the downfall of the murder case? Not initially. I can't see our Supreme Court reversing the former Chief Justice Jean Toll. However, on the federal level, once it gets to the federal level, there's a distinct possibility that a federal judge is going to say that Justice Toll should have applied the federal standard of juror interference without having to require that you show it influenced the outcome of the verdict. And maybe he gets a new trial. But for me, I don't care, because my job was to get him convicted of those financial crimes so that he will never get out of prison ever again and hurt people and steal their money. And so I'm satisfied. If he's convicted again, so be it. If a jury finds he's not guilty or it's a hung jury, so be it. But
Right.
do I believe that if you went solely, take out all the financial crimes, which I don't think you should, and I don't think they're going to overturn it based on that the financial crimes were part of the element of motive, even though motive's not an element of murder. I think if you look at the facts of the murder, he will be convicted again. The fact that he lied about the kennel video, the fact of the video with the sunflower trees that he was with Paul, and the change of the outfits, and his behavior at 10 o'clock when the police showed up, and then the statements that he, still I'm numb from the fact that Jim Griffin and Corey Fleming let him go talk to SLED while these, no charges were pending, thinking that he could talk his way out of being a target.
Did you kill Maggie?
No. Did I kill my wife?
Yes, sir.
No, David.
Do you know who did?
No, I do not know who did.
Did you kill Paul?
No, I did not kill Paul.
Do you know who did?
No, sir, I do not know who did.
I have to go where the evidence and the facts take me, and I don't have anything that points to anybody else at this time.
So does that mean that I am a suspect?
You heard David Owens say, look, Alex, when Alex said, look, am I being considered as a suspect? And David Owen was honest and said, quite frankly, there's no other explanation other than you. And it's the truth. I mean, where is it coming from? Where are they? Where are the Cowboys? Where is somebody else who
Where did they
this?
run off? Yeah.
Yeah.
How did they run off into the woods? And
Mhm.
what did that look like
Right.
with your guns from your house?
Right.
And I think the biggest thing for me, Eric's always been, how did he know to lie about the kennel video?
Sure.
That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Why would he know to
That it
lie
was
about that?
that it was so vitally important, because the kennel video was on Paul's phone. It wasn't on his phone, and he was preoccupied with Maggie in the background with Bubba and the guinea hens.
Bubba.
Hey, Bubba.
It's a guinea.
This is a chicken.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here, Cash.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quit.
Yeah.
So he wasn't paying attention to what Paul was doing with Cash, the dog, and the tail. So he didn't really know, I guess, whether there was a video. He certainly heard Paul on the phone talking.
But he wasn't paying attention to what that was, because 50-year-olds like myself have no idea what my daughter's doing when she's Snapchatting somebody.
Of
I would have
course.
no idea, Eric.
No. And so he knew, though, enough that I can't put myself in the place of where the murder happened. I got to figure out another alibi. And so he said, I was sleeping.
Yeah.
And let me explain something to you. He brought Maggie back to go see his father, who was dying at that time. That was the whole purpose of Maggie coming back. Remember, her sister was the one who convinced her to come back. She did not want to come back from Edisto to Mizell that night. And the whole purpose was they were going to go visit Randolph. Well, if he's leaving it at 9 o'clock at night to go to his mother, why wouldn't you just detour to the kennels and tell your wife and son, look, we're not going to be able to go see my dad tonight, but I want to go tuck in my mother or see that she's okay. Why would he just drive straight down the driveway when, he couldn't get in touch with Maggie by phone?
I know. The web of deceit and
If he's
lies
sleeping,
and-
just listen to me. If he's sleeping, how does he know Maggie's with Paul? How do you know that? And so you've called Maggie on the phone. She's not answering. Her car's there. So you know that she's still somewhere on the property. Aren't you going to go look for your spouse? He didn't know
100%.
if he's with Paul she's with Paul. He's supposedly been sleeping for an hour after dinner. So why would he just drive straight? Well, he drove straight because he didn't want to have to go see Maggie and Paul. Why? Because they were already dead. They died at 8:49, between 8:49 and 8:51. He would be driving to a dead man scene. He wanted to go see his mother and then come back. And then, oh my God, I just discovered this. And all those strange facts when he did go to his mother's house, and how he was lingering around the back and, looking through the window when Shelley said all that.
I'd love to talk to Shelley now and find out how she's doing.
Oh, sure. And Dick is running around saying, my client's innocent. It's one thing for a lawyer to say, Ann, the state didn't prove their case. Happens all the time. You lawyers say it all the time. I'm not going to speak to my client's guilt or innocent. That's not my job. The job is of the prosecution to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and they didn't meet their burden. Dick is actually taking that next step. My client is innocent. 11 jurors, definitely 11. The 12th did vote for it, did put her hand up, did say this is my vote, true to my conscience, without anybody coercion. But at least 11 said, without question, he's guilty. Remember, 24 ears and 24 eyes watched that court for 6 weeks. They picked up a lot. I remember talking to 6 of the jurors that I represented, and they said some things that happened at the trial.
Represented all those jurors, Eric.
They said some things that happened at the trial, and I said, oh, that's right. I didn't think of that. I mean, think about that. They were there. They saw and perceived stuff that we didn't perceive because we came in it with our own preconceived notions, or we were focusing on Alex, looking at Alex or Dick or something else in the courtroom. They're focusing on the witness stand.
They were so close to it too.
Yeah.
And to be sitting there it was painful to watch when Alec Murdaugh took the stand.
Did you kill Maggie?
No, I did not kill Maggie. I did not kill Paul. I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul. Ever. Under any circumstances.
As it was, like just from where we were, but for the jury, they were just right there. I think at one point, one of them handed him a Kleenex.
Yeah, I mean,
But there was nothing. It was crocodile tears, right?
Dick and Jim did as good a job as they could do. They had a client that was unruly and wouldn't listen and went on the witness stand. I know that was against their better advice, that he should never have done that. But Dick's
wanted you as a criminal defense attorney. You never wanted to go on the witness stand, right?
Dick's got tremendous skills, but those skills are not modernized skills. He's an older trial lawyer. The stuff that he used to do that would make a jury laugh or people would find cute, they now find offensive. When he made those comments to Special Agent Worley and said, what's so special about you? Or when the one female SLED agent put the phone in a paper bag and he said it was like throwing pork and beans in a bag. Or he grabbed the gun and aimed it at the state and said, boy, I'd like to do this. There was a time when jurors would laugh at that. But today people find that boorish behavior. He's aged out. I'm aging out. I'm 64. I'm like yogurt, man. Lawyers expire like yogurt. They can't go on forever. And it's a new world with new, younger lawyers. And Dick's had a magical career, one of the greatest lawyers our state has ever produced. But the legal game is passing him by. It happens. And Creighton dusted the courtroom with his presentation.
Eric, he did. That was, I talked to him about the whole Gathering Storm speech that he made.
And you're going to hear some of what was going on in Alex Murdaugh's life leading up to that day. Stuff that happened that very day, stuff that was leading up, a perfect storm that was gathering, much like the storms that are coming outside today. Listen for that evidence. Listen to that gathering storm that all came to a head on June 7th, 2021, the day the evidence will show he killed Maggie and Paul.
And I remember John Monk sitting next to me during that speech, John Monk, the reporter from the state, and he's got us both beat on years doing what he loves, right?
Right.
And Monk looked at me and said, that is Shakespeare. I mean, he literally, with the way he was talking and with the storm rolling in, I mean, the news tents were flying, outside, the winds were howling, we heard thunder, we heard lightning, and then we heard Creighton. And it was like, wow, you cannot tee this stuff up any better than this.
Yeah, and Matter's rebuttal was just magical.
Oh,
His first close wasn't that great, but the rebuttal was so powerful.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh loved, I think he loved Maggie. I think he loved Paul. But you know who he loved more than that? You know who he loved more than that? And who he's going to make sure that life, wanted to make sure that life, he loved Alex.
That there was just no doubt, no reasonable doubt. It's reasonable doubt. It's not doubt. I could come up with any doubt, Anne, but the doubt needs to be reasonable, and nobody could give me reasonable doubt that he didn't do it. Listen, we convict people of circumstantial evidence in murder cases all the time. Circumstantial evidence is just as good as direct evidence. You get a jury charge for that.
It can be really good.
It can be really good.
You've heard Eric's take. Now I want to hear yours. Do you think the Hulu series got it right about Alec Murdaugh, or did they miss the real story? Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up next.